Hi, my name is Martin Cardenas. My team and I, we are going to talk about Cuban white coat diplomacy. And first of all, born the question, what comes to mind when you hear Cuba? Well, I respond to that question that Cuba is the largest global exporter of physicians globally, and that explains how small countries does big things. And also over the time, this campaign evidence that is the most effective diplomatic campaign Cuba has. And second, I explain how it started. This program was initially created as a part of the country's foreign policy in support of anti-colonial struggles, and in 1963, the first small of groups of medical workers was sent to Algeria. After of that, the programs went official in 2005 with the creation of International Containment of Doctor Specialists in Disaster and Serious Epidemics, Henry Reeve. And the name of the program, Henry Reeve, is in honor of an American brigadier of the Liberation Army of Cuba during the 10 Years' War. Thank you.
The campaign going. Since 1963, when the campaign technically started, Cuba has sent over 600,000 medical staff around the globe to 160 countries. That's pretty much every corner of the world, really. Also, Cuban has been first responders to Haiti, a country that has been constantly struck by earthquakes and Ebola outbreaks. And every time something like that happens, what do you know? The Henry Reeve Brigade is there. Also, in Africa, constant Ebola outbreaks, the Henry Reeve Brigade has been there over and over and over. And thanks to these titanical efforts of the brigade, this brigade got an award. But I'm going to talk about that a little bit going forward. Also, we haven't been short of doctors and medical staff. Nine out of 1,000 Cubans are dedicated to a medical related profession. Uh, During the pandemic, we sent over 39 missions with over 9,600 professionals, and we helped over a half million people in the middle of a pandemic when the world was crumbling down. The good part about the campaign is, like I said before, we got an award in 2017. The WHO awarded the Henry Reeve Brigade to the Lee John Wook Award because of its titanical efforts combating Ebola in Africa. It's also low cost for the countries that receive this aid. Not only the Henry Reeve Brigade, because the Henry Reeve Brigade is kind of like an emergency first response medical brigade. Like the general amount of missions that Cuba sends to abroad um, are a really low cost for the countries that are being sent to. Let's remember that the countries that often get these missions are kind of poor and in need of this aid. So it's really good economically for them. Also, every doctor volunteers. Nobody is forced. It's not like the Cuban government is coming, grabbing someone and telling, hey, you're going to Africa. No, every doctor and every medical related professional volunteer. So he goes on his own agreement. Domestic health policy, like I mentioned, is not affected because we've been forming so many health professionals in order not to run out of medical professions back at home, and at the same times we can send people abroad. It is something that others can be proud of. Let's remember that Cuban doctors have this reputation that they're one of the best in the world. So when the people are treated by one of a Cuban doctor, they feel proud because they say, "Hey, we've been treated by one of the best doctors in the globe," and it's something that makes us Cuban too feel proud because we're poor, we are not really developed. We're a small country, and yet we're helping absolutely everyone with their health issues. And lastly, if we need medical aid at some point, which has not been needed so far, but if we do, we're gonna get it because this massive campaign that we've been leading ever since begun in 1963 has been creating this massive sense of reciprocity in the world. Even if you haven't been treated by a Cuban doctor or your country hasn't received any aid of the Cuban missions. You've heard of it. Your country has heard of it, and everybody has the sense that we send all these doctors abroad. So if at some point we have a medical disaster and we need the aid, for sure we're gonna get the aid because of this massive sense of reciprocity that we've been building up ever since 1963.
I'm going to talk about the bad and the ugly part about this campaign. The bad part about this campaign is that most of the Cuban professionals are defected. In 2006, a campaign made by the Bush administration encouraged Cuban doctors to defect. The program granted U.S. officials discretionary authority to allow Cuban medical professionals into the United States, providing assistance at the U.S. embassies in the countries where the doctors are posted. It was open to more than 50,000 Cuban medical professionals in more than 60 countries. Also, the Cuban professionals face poor treatment and low salaries. This is due to the fact that most of the countries they go believe that they are being sent as informants. So, in order for them to return to their country, they are sent to very precarious places inside the host country. Furthermore, while the jobs are well paid by the Cuban standards and highly sought, the doctors receive only a fraction of the amount that the foreign governments pay for their services. This is why some defectors have cited harsh working conditions as reasons for abandoning their posts. The ugly part about this campaign is that because of these evidences, the campaign is slowly crumbling down. Agreements are getting discredited, and there's a bit of propaganda slipped in there. So, no surveys are conduced to measure the true impact of the campaign, and if there are, they are not reliable.
What are the effects of the Cuban diplomacy? At the Fifth Summit of the Americas, President Obama remarked how much he had heard about Cuba's diplomacy. This makes up for future reciprocity for Cuba, and also it makes it look well because it's it's delaying this part of the Cold War, and instead of that, they're sending doctors around the world, which is pretty important. And it helps Cuba with an extra amount of income due that in the last decade, over $11 billion have been made annually. The extra income, as low as it is, makes the professionals and their families live a little better life, to have a better life for the doctors of Cuba. Why do we think that this has worked so far? They use different elements of influence, as it is reciprocity. Doctors are people that save lives, and so when Cuban doctor is helping you or anyone in your family, you might feel really grateful about Cubans. Scarcity is also another element that we can consider in this, due that the scarcity is used over the lack of doctors that are in the world. Everyone needs a doctor, and giving that to the world give an interest position to Cuba. An important element of public diplomacy is that Cuba listened. And listen how they saw what the world needed. They're sending good doctors to the world because of the lack of doctors. And in order for this to happen, they had good universities, they started making good professionals on this. And now the doctors that are around the world are telling their culture, they're telling how they live, they're telling how Cuba is good for them because they're making good professionals right there. And that's pretty interesting to analyze in this part.